The Suburbia Cell. The jello mold on the dining room table was lime green, suspended with chunks of pineapple and maraschino cherries. It quivered slightly as a truck rumbled past on Elm Street, a vibration that traveled up through the polished mahogany table and into the elbows of Robert and Martha Miller. To the neighbors of Shady Lane, Ohio, the Millers were the platonic ideal of the American dream. Robert was a senior engineer at the Dayton avionics plant, a man who mowed his lawn in a diagonal pattern and wore a hat to work. Martha was the head of the PTA bake sale committee, a woman who could bake a pot roast that melted in your mouth and whose pearls were never crooked. They had 2 children. David, 10, who played Little League, and Betsy, 16, who wore poodle skirts and listened to Elvis Presley when she thought her parents weren't home. To the Directorate S of the KGB in Moscow, Robert was Colonel Mikhail Orlov. Martha was Major Katya Orlova. They were illegals, deep cover agents, planted in the U.S. since 1945. "Pass the peas, please, dear," Martha said, her smile bright and terrifyingly fixed. "Certainly, darling," Robert replied. They were speaking English, of course. They always spoke English. Even in bed. Even in their nightmares. To slip was to die. The mission was currently at a critical juncture. Robert McHale had finally gained access to the blueprints for the new guidance system being developed at the plant. The microfilm was currently hidden inside a hollowed-out handle of his lawn edger in the garage. But the tension at the table wasn't about the guidance system. It was about Betsy. Betsy was pushing her peas around her plate with a sullen rebellion that was entirely American. She chewed her gum loudly. "Betsy," Martha said, her voice straining the limits of maternal warmth, "please stop chomping. It's unladylike." "It's just gum, Mom," Betsy sighed, rolling her eyes. "Anyway, I need the car on Friday. There's a drive-in movie." Robert cleared his throat. "Who were you going with, pumpkin?" Betsy's face flushed a shade of pink that matched her cardigan. "Johnny?" Robert and Martha exchanged a look that lasted a microsecond but communicated volumes of encrypted panic. Johnny was Johnny Henderson, the captain of the football team. A polite boy with a firm handshake. He was also the son of Special Agent Frank Henderson, the head of the local FBI field office. The man whose job it was to hunt down Soviet spies in the industrial heartland. "Johnny Henderson," Robert said, his voice level. "He's a nice boy. But Friday? I thought we were going to play Scrabble." "Dad, Scrabble is for squares," Betsy groaned. "Everyone is going to see the blob. It's a date. A date with the enemy's son?" If Betsy went to the drive-in with Johnny, she would be in the Henderson car. She might mention something innocent. "Daddy stays up late in the basement, listening to weird radio static." Or Mommy burns letters in the sink sometimes. Betsy didn't know who they were. She was born in Brooklyn. She was as American as the apple pie Martha baked every Sunday. She was their cover, but she was also their greatest liability. "I don't think it's a good idea," Martha said quickly. "You have your math test on Monday." "Mom," Betsy slammed her fork down. "You are ruining my life. Johnny really likes me. He even said his dad wants to meet you guys. He invited us over for a barbecue on Saturday." The silence that followed was deafening. A barbecue. At the FBI agent's house. How thoughtful, Robert managed to say. "So we can go?" Betsy beamed. "Please? It would mean so much to me." Robert looked at his daughter. He loved her. That was the problem. In the training manual, children were listed as operational assets, or camouflage. It didn't mention that you would love them so much it hurt. It didn't mention that their happiness would become more important than the party. "We'll see," Robert said. Later that night, in the basement, Robert had the shortwave radio set up behind a false panel in his workbench. He typed out a burst transmission to Moscow. Target: Henderson. Invitation received. Social engagement imminent. Advise. He waited. The static hissed. The reply came back in Morse code. rapid and cold. Accept invitation. Assess Henderson's suspicion level. Protocol Omega was the burn order. Destroy the house. Eliminate witnesses. Flee to the extraction point in Canada. Eliminate witnesses included anyone who could identify them. Robert turned off the radio. He stared at the unfinished birdhouse on his workbench. He felt sick. Saturday arrived with a blue sky and the smell of charcoal. The Millers walked 2 blocks to the Henderson house. Robert carried a 6-pack of beer. Martha carried a gelatin salad, orange, with mandarin oranges. They looked perfect. Robert wore a polo shirt and khaki shorts. Martha wore a sundress. Frank Henderson met them at the gate. He was a big man with a flat-top haircut and eyes that seemed to photograph everything they saw. "Bob! Martha!" Frank boomed, shaking Robert's hand. His grip was iron. "Glad you could make it. Johnny hasn't shut up about Betsy all week." "Thanks for having us, Frank," Robert said, flashing his best aw-shucks grin. "Lovely place you got here." "It's standard issue," Frank laughed. The backyard was a slice of Americana. There was a sprinkler hissing on the lawn. Johnny and Betsy were sitting on the swing set, holding hands, looking at each other with sickening, innocent adoration. Robert watched them. He saw the way Johnny brushed a stray hair from Betsy's face. He saw Betsy giggle. "They look good together," a voice said. Robert turned. It was Frank, holding a spatula. "They do," Robert agreed. "Young love. Scary stuff," Frank said, flipping a burger. "Kids grow up fast. One minute they're in diapers, the next they're dating. You worry about them. You worry about who they're hanging out with, what kind of influences they're under." Frank looked at Robert. The look lingered a second too long. "Absolutely," Robert said. "You can never be too careful." "Exactly," Frank said. "Especially with the work I do. How neighbors aren't always who they say they are." Robert's heart stopped. Was he fishing? Did he know? "I can imagine," Robert said. "Must be stressful. Hunting. Criminals. Criminals, subversives, reds." Frank spat the word. "They're everywhere, Bob. Even in Ohio. Trying to steal our secrets. Trying to poison our way of life." Frank pointed the spatula at Robert's chest. "But we catch 'em. We always catch 'em. Because they make mistakes. They get comfortable. They forget that we're watching." Robert forced a laugh. "Well, I sleep better, knowing you're on the job, Frank." "Do you?" Frank asked. His eyes drilled into Robert. "Good. That's what we're here for." The rest of the afternoon was a blur of terror. Martha was chatting with Frank's wife, Susan, about laundry detergent. Robert stood by the cooler, nursing a beer, watching Frank watch him. Every time Betsy laughed, Robert flinched. At one point, Johnny came over to Robert. "Mr. Miller," Johnny said respectfully, "I just wanted to say, Betsy is really special. I know you guys are strict, but I really care about her." Robert looked at this boy. This American boy, who was the son of his executioner. "She's special to us too, Johnny," Robert said softly. "You take care of her." "Yes, sir, always." That night, the house on Shady Lane was quiet. Betsy was asleep, dreaming of the drive-in. Robert and Martha sat in the kitchen. The lights were off. "He suspects," Robert whispered. He was dropping hints. "He talked about neighbors not being who they say they are." "Maybe he talks like that to everyone," Martha said, wringing her hands. "No. He looked at me. Katya. He looked at me. He knows something. Maybe not everything, but enough to start digging." "We have to leave," Martha said. Her voice broke. "We have to trigger Omega." "If we trigger Omega," Robert trailed off. "We burn the house," Martha recited the protocol. "We take the microfilm. We leave." "And Betsy?" Robert asked. "She comes with us." "She won't go," Robert said. "She's 16. She's in love. If we tell her we're Russian spies and we have to flee to Moscow, she'll run straight to Johnny. She'll run to Frank." Martha began to cry. Silent, shaking sobs. So, what do we do? Do we? Do we leave her? We can't leave her, Robert said. The FBI would interrogate her. They'd destroy her life. Then we take her by force, Martha said, her face hardening into the mask of Major Orlova. We sedate her. We put her in the trunk. When she wakes up, we are in a safe house. Robert looked at his wife. He saw the desperation in her eyes. She will hate us, Robert said. She will never forgive us. We will be taking her from paradise to a prison. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't know the culture. She will be a prisoner of the state. Better a prisoner than an orphan, Martha said. Monday, the day of the math test. Robert called in sick to the plant. He spent the morning packing go bags, cash, passports, pistols. He watched Betsy leave for school. She kissed him on the cheek. Bye, Daddy. Wish me luck. Good luck, Pumpkin, he said. He held her for a second longer than usual. At noon, the phone rang. It was Frank Henderson. Bob, Frank's voice was tight. I need you to come down to the station. Or actually, I'm coming to you. Is everything okay, Frank? Robert asked, his hand drifting to the drawer where the Tokarev pistol was hidden under the oven mitts. It's the kids, Frank said. David and Johnny. They got into some trouble at school. Fighting. Fighting? Yeah. I'm bringing Johnny home. I figured I'd drop by, and we could talk about everything. Talk about everything. It was the code. The confrontation. Frank wasn't coming to talk about a schoolyard fight. He was coming to make an arrest. He was using the kids as a pretext to get into the house. Sure, Frank, Robert said. Come on over. He hung up. Katya, he shouted. Martha ran in from the laundry room. It's time, Robert said. He's coming, Omega, now. They moved with practiced efficiency. Martha grabbed the bags. Robert went to the garage and retrieved the microfilm from the edger. He poured gasoline on the pile of files in the basement. They had 10 minutes before Frank arrived. They needed to get Betsy from school. I'll drive to the school, Robert said. You get the car ready. I'll grab Betsy, come back, pick you up, and we go. Robert, Martha grabbed his arm. Look, she pointed out the window. A black sedan was parked across the street. 2 men in suits were sitting in the front seat, watching the house. Surveillance, Robert cursed. They're already here. Frank isn't coming to talk. He's coming to close the trap. If they tried to leave in the car, they would be stopped. The back, Robert said. Through the woods. We can cross the creek and get to the highway. We can steal a car there. And Betsy, Martha asked, her eyes wild. We can't get to the school. Robert froze. If they ran now, they survived. They got the microfilm to Moscow. If they tried to get Betsy, they would be caught. Robert, Martha screamed. The car is moving. The black sedan was pulling into their driveway. We have to go, Robert said. His voice sounded dead. We have to go now. No, Martha cried. My baby. She's not a baby, Katya. She's an American. She belongs here. Robert grabbed his wife's shoulders and shook her. If we stay, we die. And she sees us die. If we run, she lives. She lives a normal life. She marries Johnny, she forgets us. She will think we abandoned her, Martha sobbed. We are abandoning her, Robert said, tears streaming down his face. To save her. He grabbed the gas can. He poured a trail to the kitchen. He lit a match. The fire caught instantly. Robert and Martha Miller ran out the back door. They scrambled over the fence, tearing their suburban clothes. They splashed through the muddy creek, leaving the manicured lawn and the jello molds behind. They vanished into the woods, just as Frank Henderson's car pulled into the driveway. Epilogue. Betsy Miller came home from school to find fire trucks on her lawn. The house was gone. The roof had collapsed. She screamed for her parents. A policeman held her back. I'm sorry, miss. I'm so sorry. They never found the bodies. The police said the fire was so intense, fueled by chemicals in the basement, that nothing remained. It was ruled a tragic accident. A gas leak. Betsy was an orphan. She moved in with the Hendersons. They took her in. Frank Henderson was strangely quiet around her, treating her with a gentle, guilty deference. He never told her that he had found a burnt codebook in the ruins. He never told her that her parents weren't dead, but ghosts who had slipped through his fingers. He let her believe the lie, because the truth would have broken her. Betsy married Johnny 3 years later. They had 3 children. They lived in a house with a white picket fence. Sometimes, late at night, Betsy would wake up with a strange feeling. A memory of her father's voice, speaking a language she didn't understand. A memory of her mother's desperate hug on a Monday morning. She would go to the window and look out at the quiet, dark street. She would wonder why they never said goodbye. And 4,000 miles away, in a gray apartment block in Moscow, an old woman would sit by a window, looking at a faded photograph of a girl in a poodle skirt, weeping silently into a cup of cold tea.